There are three very scary true fishing horror stories. 1967 Coho Salmon Fishing Disaster, Lake Michigan, Michigan. 2. A-Boats Disaster, Bering Sea off Washington, USA. Commercial king crab fishing vessels. Scary fishing stories that will give you chills. A collection of true tales from Florida sport fishing captains. Imagine a calm, Florida morning, the sun glinting off the waves, when experienced fishermen suddenly face the unthinkable. Strange ripples in the water turn into terrifying encounters that shake even the bravest. Lines get pulled, boats are rocked, and the ocean seems alive with something sinister. These aren't just tall tales. These are true stories that will haunt anyone who dares to fish these waters. Stay with us, because what happened next will leave you breathless. 1967 Coho Salmon Fishing Disaster. On that bright September morning of 1967, the shores of Lake Michigan around northern Michigan throbbed with excitement, as anglers from across the Midwest converged for what had been hailed as a once-in-a-lifetime fall run of coho salmon. The lakeside towns of Frankfort, Manistee, and the mouth of the Platte River were packed with boats, rods and hopes, the air humming with talk of massive fish and record catches. And yet beneath that thrill lay an undercurrent of risk few truly owned up to. Boats under 18 feet in length, some with underpowered motors or inflatable dinghies disguised as fishing craft, launched into waters the locals knew could turn savage in a heartbeat. The so-called coho fever driving amateurs and veterans alike to sea without checking every safety box. By early morning, a small craft advisory fluttered at the shore, warning of rising winds and worsening conditions. But the draw of the salmon was too powerful, and the optimism too thick, so hundreds of boats still launched, slicing across the shimmering lake with eager fishermen, many of them new to these waters, many unprepared for what would follow. Around 9 a.m. the wind began to shift. A cold front unseen offshore swooped down. The sky darkened. Waves leapt from calm to fury. By late morning, winds gusted to 40 mph or more, and waves reached heights of 6 to 8 feet. And in isolated pockets soared to 15 or even 25 feet in places. The watercolor shifted to ominous steel gray. Visibility dropped in sheets of rain and spray, and boats that only an hour prior had cruised confidently into the fishery now bucked and groaned under the assault. In the mouth of the Platte and along the 40-mile stretch of coast, the drama unfolded. Boat after boat struggled. Engines revved. Spray exploded over bows. Some turned back, most pressed on, naively trusting their craft and the calm they'd known earlier. The waterline transformed. One moment placid, the next a chaotic roller of crests and troughs, capsizing small craft, sending them flipping or filling with water, abandoning their occupants. Rescue calls flooded in, and by afternoon the shoreline was a hive of confusion. Relief teams scrambling. The United States Coast Guard launched planes and cutters. Sheriff's deputies and local volunteers ran down beaches. Bonfires lit along 10 miles of coast to warm survivors and act as beacons. But the damage had been done. More than 150 small fishing boats were recorded as capsized or beached. Lives were lost. 7 men drowned and dozens more injured. Hypothermia setting in from 50-degree water. Life jackets failing or not worn at all, as many hadn't expected such a sudden onslaught. Tales emerged of men clinging to upturned hulls, of children and women huddled on shore, of ropes being thrown and swept away, of hearts pounding with resourcefulness and fear as each breaker threatened to carry someone out to a watery grave. In the harbor towns, vehicles jammed the roads. Families sat anxiously as phone calls came in. Local police and coast guards traced boat registrations to account for the hundreds unchecked. Until 4 days later, the official toll was confirmed and the investigation began. Afterwards, the discourse changed. Questions of preparedness, of boat size, of life jacket compliance, of weather warning heedfulness, of the gap between lakeside calm and hidden danger. While the salmon run carried on for weeks, the memory of that day haunted every angler, every launch ramp, a potent reminder that nature's mood can turn in minutes, that thrill and risk often swim side by side, and that no run of fish is worth a life unguarded. A-Boats Disaster. On that quiet, icy February morning of 1983, the sea, around the Aleutian foothills of the Bering Sea, held no warning of what was about to unfold for the too proud. Crab fishing vessels that had departed from Dutch Harbor and were operating out of Anacortes, Washington, their crews brimming with tacit confidence, every winch oiled, every pot counted, every line checked. And yet beneath the gangly cords of crab pots, beneath the scuffed decks and the scraped hulls, a lethal blend of hubris, hidden compromise, and the merciless sea was waiting. The two boats, the Americus and the Altair, both with names that began with A, hence the tragic label, A Boat's Disaster, had crossed into the crab grounds with weather deceptively calm, the water flat as an iron sheet, the morning sky pale, creating an eerie stillness that masked the ominous conditions below and around. And as the deckhands hoisted pot after pot, talked for a moment about quotas and weather reports and home port families, the worst kind of danger was already in motion because the modifications made to these vessels, adding trawling gear, shifting heavy loads of crab pots, altering the balance and raising the center of gravity, had quietly compromised their stability, and they entered the fishing season burdened by hidden risk. Without warning, while the sea remained deceptively mellow, both vessels capsized in rapid succession, one found floating upside down, the other vanished without trace, with a combined loss of 14 lives of men who had gone to sea expecting only the threat of cold and waves, not a catastrophe of geometry and design. Investigators later concluded that it was the internal changes to the vessels and the way cargo and gear had been stowed that allowed the tipping moment to come so swiftly and silently that no mayday call could be launched in time, no alarm sounded, and no rescue vessel could reach them before the sea claimed those experienced hands. The shock of the disaster rippled through the fishing community. Men who had launched every season, who trusted their boats implicitly, realized that something as hidden as stability margins could kill just as surely as an ice storm or rogue wave. Families received telegrams, mothers cried on docks, the town of Anacortes gathered for memorials beside the memorial plaque dedicated to those lost, and the industry sat up and took notice. Questions were raised about vessel modifications, about loading practices, about safety drills, about whether seasoned crews overlooked structural integrity in favor of chasing crabs and profit. Regulations were tightened, inspections increased. Ship owners who had once treated safety as a luxury began to treat it as a lifeline, and every deckhand who watched the deck tilt ever so slightly now knew that the sea gives no second chance. And though the years have rolled by, the collective memory of that day when two boats could disappear in calm seas remains a chilling reminder that in commercial fishing, the biggest danger may not be the storm you see coming, but the imbalance you never saw. Scary fishing stories that will give you chills. On Florida's coast, seasoned fishing captains share haunting tales where the routine serenity of dawn fishing gives way to the unexpected and terrifying. One story tells of a man hooked into what felt like a monster below the surface. His rod tip bent and strained, yet when the line finally broke free, there was only silence and the unresolved possibility of something massive unseen. Others recall late-night trips when the sea looked calm but the undercurrents didn't match, when echoing knocks or shuffles beneath the boat made hearts pound and rational minds question what they couldn't see. Some report sensing presences, shadows drifting just beyond torchlight, or the unmistakable feeling that they were being watched from beneath the water's glassy surface. These weren't urban legends whispered around campfires. They were true accounts from people who sensed how easily a peaceful fishing outing can turn into a confrontation with the unknown.